we're a pretty small group, so I'm not sure if introductions are necessary, but since we have a new member to the group, I wanted just to officially welcome Dean McKay to our committee.
Thank you.
Dean did introduce himself pretty thoroughly at the last full meeting, I think, the full last in-person full meeting. But Dean, if you'd like to give us the 1 minute headline
version.
Yeah, who you are, where you work, what you do.
Sure. So I work for Skillcraft Manufacturing here in Northern Kentucky. I have been with this company for about 2 years, and I am I do just about everything right now. So I'm wearing a lot of hats, but primarily I was brought in to run the HR functions, but I also now take on a lot of the operation functions as well as customer service functions. So,
and Dean,
and for your benefit, we'll go around the room and just explain who we are in the committee here. I've got kind of Dave first in the list on my view.
Okay, so Dean, you and I have worked together, so I don't think any introduction is needed. But welcome to the group.
Thank you.
It's a great group, small but powerful.
All right.
And then Nick.
Hey, Dean, Nick Birkenhauer. Hope you've been doing well. Haven't seen you in a while since Northern Kentucky SHRM event a few years back, but I'm still with DBL Law, practicing in the area about human resources and employment law, and happy to have you join the group.
Thank you. It's good to hear from you, Nick.
Yes, sir.
And Chris?
Sure, I'll go next. My VPN is not very strong, so I'm liable to go in and out on the video, but audio I've dialed in directly. Yes, I'm Chris Bateman. I'm with Amazon Air. I'm actually embedded inside DHL, so I'm sitting in my office inside DHL at the moment. Been on the air team basically since we launched this air cargo business about 3 years ago. Been with Amazon a total of about going on 14 years now. So prior to that, most of my time was at FedEx Express. So sort of been stuck in the industry for a long time now.
And I'm John Baines, the chair of the committee and managing partner for Insight Partners, as well as a Vistage CEO chair.
Chris, John, good to see you. John and I met occasionally through this, I believe. So.
Yep. So at this time, do any members need to self-identify?
I'll just self-identify just in case with Brighton Center.
Okay. You received, I'll go scroll down. You received the minutes from our last meeting on February 25th. Any questions about these minutes? No questions. I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved. Motion.
Dave.
Second.
Second by Dean.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay.
Nay. No, I didn't mean that. Sorry.
I was like,
That's not supposed to happen.
this is not how we normally work here, so.
I just want to make sure that everybody was listening. That's all.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny. I was waiting to see what John would do.
I was going to right-click him and close him out of the meeting here, so.
I just know never invite him to your wedding.
Yeah. So, Chris, just for the record, are you a yay or a nay?
I'm a yay. Sorry,
Right.
I got my nays and my yays confused. I'm
No
a yay.
worries. I just don't want to get in trouble with Tara, so. Okay, we'll bounce back up for 1 second just to review our overall agenda. So a big portion of what we do is make sure that we're in compliance regarding representation and that we have the diversity for geography and industry on top of that. Before we go into this, I want to make sure that you all received Tara's email that went through the details of what is included, or I guess the true legal requirements here. We've been having a question as to what exactly falls into the category of labor. And that's why that was sent out before. So you'll see in that document, which we can review, there are some shalls and there's some musts, or mays, I should say.
Yeah, there's 2 shalls and several mays.
Right. So we want to make sure we're minimum covered in the shalls on that side.
Yeah.
And then, and we have 2 requirements. One is that business is at least 51% of the makeup of the board, and workforce, education, and labor are at least 20% of the makeup. I saw the email conversation between Tara, between you and Jason Ashbrook about the Business Services Committee percentages. I didn't realize that requirement also was true for the committee level.
Well, you know, John, it's interesting that you say that, because when I first started, I did not realize that either. And then some of the staff over the last probably month and a half had brought to my attention that they strongly believe that that was the case. And we've actually had some concerns about the makeup of the Program and Youth Committee, as well as the Business Services Committee, with that in mind. And to your point, I was thinking, oh my gosh, well, we just had this MBO committee meeting in February, and I didn't realize that, and was scrambling a little bit about it. And then as I was reading this document, and I was reading it looking for the labor information, because I know that we had talked about that last time, and actually it had been my intention to get this to you guys before. I'm just pulling this up here. I came across some things about standing committees, and it actually does not specify in the standing committees about this business percentage. So I think the team actually may have been incorrect about that. So while I regret that, we spent the last maybe 6 weeks, concerned and worried about it, I'm a bit relieved that actually that wasn't something that we needed to be worried about. The only other thing that I will add in my reading, and this is on page 33 of that PDF of the WIOA language, it goes into the details about the standing committee. And it's actually, right there. The local board may designate and direct the activities of standing committees. They shall be chaired by a member of the local board. They may include other members of the local board, and they shall include other individuals appointed by the local board who are not members of the local board and who the local board determines have appropriate experience and expertise. And I thought that was really fascinating, because that is definitely not how I believe that we have been working. All of our committees are made up of our membership of the WIB overall. So, good news, we don't have to worry about this business percentage that really has been concerning me. So not that none of us like to be wrong, but in this case, I'm happy to have been incorrect about that. But I thought it was extremely interesting that this is pretty specific about that we should be having others on these committees. And that's a complete difference from what we've been doing. So I'm not suggesting that we completely change this like today necessarily, but very interesting for your all's consideration.
It's very interesting language. Since it's presuming that the board members themselves don't possess the experience or expertise that you therefore would have to go outside the board.
Yes, isn't that strange? Because I feel that the makeup of the board has been created in such a way that that experience is absolutely already present.
Well, if I could interrupt just for a second, historically,
Yeah.
when many years ago, when the board wasn't as well structured as it is today, there was a lot of what we called ad hoc committees that were formed for special purposes. And I think this is the general paragraph that was utilized when we utilized that. We did that back before the WIB actually had a solid strategic plan back, I think, in 2007 or 2008. We did have to bring in some subject matter experts in helping the WIB, kind of pull the information together, walk through the mission statement and all the things that are involved in putting a strategic plan together. So we've done that, but I think what happened, and to Barb's credit, what we realized was to get an ad hoc committee in place took twice as much work of bringing that committee up to speed on what the issues were, especially if it was something. So for example, before we had a Janet Hara on the board, we had to go do data crunching, and then we had to enlist people to help us data crunch. And it was pretty gruesome task to bring somebody up to speed. So that's when it was decided to structure the board a little bit better.
Gotcha. I mean, it makes sense to me. Again, it really feels like right now the board is really capable. I don't feel like we have these gaps that we would need to go externally, but I was just really surprised reading that. The other thing, and it doesn't say we have to do this, but it does specifically call out a standing committee that would address people with disabilities and helping them find employment opportunities. That's like right above where it says B. It calls out a standing committee around one-stop partners, which I feel like is handled through the program and youth committee, and a standing committee to provide expertise around youth. So I feel like those two are really combined. But it doesn't say we have to, but we may create a standing committee around persons with disabilities. And I just thought that I hadn't seen that before. So I'm still reading through. This is my WIOA binder, if you guys can see me. So I'm still reading through all this, but anyway.
Okay, so for the purpose of the question that was raised about percentage requirements relative to standing committees, we will consider that issue closed.
Yes.
And not a requirement. And
correct.
Relative to the language requiring non-board members to be involved in committees, we will consider that also closed, as we have been recruiting the right expertise and experience to the board and feel we have met the spirit of this requirement.
Can I just ask a clarifying question, John? And I agree with what you said. If we do have a if we have a non-member as part of the standing committee for some activity, are they able to vote? Does it say anything about any kind of voting rights if they're part of that committee in an ad hoc basis?
I'd have to look through that, Dave. I've not looked at that level of detail here, and if they would count towards quorum and other issues like that.
Yeah, I think that may dovetail back into the issue that Jason brought forward potentially.
Okay. All right, so we'll do maybe just one more review of non-board member participants in standing committees to help answer any questions that the committee chairs may have about that comment.
Yeah. I mean, from what it says, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dave. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that a lot of these boards, these WIOA boards in smaller counties or other regions of the USA are nowhere as large as our board. And so in some cases, a board could be less than, 8 members. And
Yeah.
so we have to understand that this paper is written to support, a board our size and a smaller board. So there's got to be a little bit of common sense included in the understanding.
Sure, that
Okay.
makes sense. We'll do one more read through, and I actually have a call planned. I've been reaching out to my counterparts in other WIBs, both in Kentucky and external, just to learn more and make sure that I understand, some of these dynamics. And so I'll add that to my list of things, that just to see what others are doing in this regard that might help inform what we do.
All right, appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump down then to the, oops. Let's actually go to the very last page here. So the color codes represent the yellow is education and training. The sort of green is government and economic development. And then blue is our workforce representatives, and that's the one that has the requirement on a minimum percentage. And this sort of overcooked salmon color is the business representation with also that requirement. So yeah. As you can see, we have the current calculations here in that second column. So we are below the 20% threshold for workforce and above for business. And just so you understand what our target would need to be, let me zoom up on this. We have on the docket, I don't believe you've included in that already, did you, Stainless?
Yeah.
I thought that it should have been at the end of the packet.
Yeah, but she's not in the table yet.
She's not in the table because she's not been approved.
Right, okay,
But,
that's good. So
yeah.
I've gone ahead and reflected the future state with her approved because she's
Okay.
not taking a spot away, correct?
Correct.
All right.
She's not taking a spot away.
So, and then we for sure need to add someone from the workforce category. So by adding those two people, we move to above the 20%, so we're good. And above the 51%, we're still compliant there.
Correct.
These are pretty slim numbers, though. Do we need to move some people into the workforce?
So
that the problem is, as you start, because these are not independent variables, if you have a second person in workforce, you get right up against the threshold for business. So you would start needing to add both almost together for this to work, Dave.
Yep, you're right. Mm-hmm.
So let me go back to the list again. So Chris Friedel had been on this, but not a participant. So that's also part of a review, is who is a member, but not acting as a member. Hello, Kat.
Sorry.
No problem. I love the little bombs of all that. My kids normally walk in at this point asking for help with their homework, but clearly not doing their homework right now. So
he knows that I'm afraid of him, so he tends to take advantage of that.
Afraid of him. All right, that's another story for another day.
He has claws and sharp teeth. We'll just leave it there. So yeah, to your point, John, just to be clear, I have left Chris on here so that we could see that position. But as you know, if you note on the left-hand side, I have taken him out of the numbering. He has not officially resigned from the board, but he did notify me that he does not have the capacity to attend any meetings. And so with that, it's been an interest of mine, and this is why we're talking about making sure that we're meeting our requirements. with representing labor in particular, because that's the area that he's representing, to make sure that we are fulfilling that requirement. So that is why I went ahead and took him out of the calculation, because he has not been to a meeting in, I'm not actually sure if he's been to a meeting in fiscal year 20.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go back to your section. So here are the two shalls we were talking about.
Yes, sir.
And so representatives of labor organizations and of essentially what I'm reading this as a labor organization supporting apprenticeship programs.
Correct. And that is what he does, is that second part.
And is Chad Day technically labor? Is this a?
He is.
Okay.
But my reading of that component of the law is that it would be both people, like both positions would need to be represented.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. And we talked in February about identifying potential members here. We didn't have a great deal of success. I did have a conversation with someone connected to the ironworkers, local 44.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking to the right people yet.
So
and I don't know whether they have an apprenticeship program that would, qualify under the bylaws.
Tara, I think I talked to you about this at the last meeting and I didn't follow up on my side, so I'll apologize in advance. But there is a gentleman that has been working with some of the Pillar 2 folks and the Navigo folks in the Career Connection side that represents apprenticeships through Mesner Construction. And he seems very engaged in being part of the Northern Kentucky group.
Okay.
And I was going to reach out to him, and I think right when I went to do that is when all the virus stuff started happening, and honestly, it just slipped my mind until today. So, would that person qualify? I mean, he's part of the construction company, but he's not a union representative.
Yeah, so if we go back to that section, and I'm just looking here to read it, where it states, shall include a representative who shall be a member of a labor organization or a training director from a joint labor management apprenticeship program. So I guess in his case, do you feel that he's working with labor through apprenticeships with his company?
That is very clear. He is.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not that he happens to be somebody on the management side. His role is to develop the apprenticeship programs for that company across Greater Cincinnati.
I mean, I think based on the way I read this, as long as he's working and partnering with the labor community to develop that apprenticeship program, which it sounds like he is, I mean, I'd like to hear from the rest of this committee. But to me, it sounds like that would fall under this description. John, what do you think? Or Nick?
The question is I don't know if he's a member of the organization. So
he's a Mesner employee.
Oh, okay.
I'm going
to go. You're saying Messer?
Messer, yeah. I'm going to go back to, again, the history with Barb. Now, she did interpret this as having somebody that was part of a union organization.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as like Chad is part of the IBEW.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know. To me, it says either you're a member of that organization or you're a training director from a joint program. So,
And
I don't know.
I will also say, Tara, that her interpretation was not this document either. This is a 2014 or 13 document. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, this is the WIOA language. So
Yeah, but what is?
Yeah.
But wasn't there a change between 2007 and 8 to this last act? I wonder if this verbiage changed, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, I see.
That I don't know.
I don't see a date on this
I don't know. I
document.
mean, this
This
is
is
the
2014.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we went from WIA to WIOA during that time frame. I mean, this is, as far as I know, this is the most up-to-date version. And this is I mean, Barb gave me this binder and said, this is your proverbial Bible with all the, up-to-date items. And I checked, in the language that I sent the link from is exactly verbatim what's in this.
Okay, all right.
So,
But I think it's still worth the conversation, because even if it's not, as technically correct as what's required here, that's a great voice to have at the table. And I'll reach out to my contact now that I have this language. I can sort of see how we might be able to find the right people there and potentially add 2 there. So that, like I said before, if that, if we were to add 2 on that, we're still compliant overall.
okay.
And certainly easier for us to find additional business members than it would be to find additional labor members, although we have other aspects under the workforce grouping to grow that if needed.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out. I don't know if I was muted.
Now you're unmuted.
Okay, I reached out while you guys were talking to someone I know that may have some labor connections in this area, and I'll see if I get any hits on that.
Great.
To make sure I understand, they need to be a resident of Kentucky and involved in those roles that were described, correct? Because I know a lot of what gets pushed a lot is a lot of them are based out of Ohio and people live in Ohio. So
do they have to be part from Kentucky?
Residency?
I actually do not know that 100%. It was my understanding that if they had to at least work or live in Kentucky, if they're representing a group that is working with Kentucky-based individuals, I mean, you think about some of our other requirements, like from community and technical colleges. I mean, as long as the person that's in that role is representing a Kentucky-based institution, I don't know that in that role they have to physically live in Kentucky, but it's definitely been my understanding that they need to either live or work here.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So that may be potentially 3 candidates. That would be great.
That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great.
And this has always been, this particular position for labor has always been a bugaboo. So it'd be great to have it stocked.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. Well, and if we needed to add additional business representatives in order to make the ratios work, we've talked about that, some additional rural business representation. We have 1 candidate for your review today, but certainly there would be some room for those individuals if we needed to offset by adding a couple of additional business people. I mean, I know we don't want a board that's so large that it's hard to make decisions, but yet large enough to be able to be fully representing all these areas that are of a focus.
I think we have, yeah, it's really, we have the issue of some drop-offs in June next year.
Correct.
So 4 on the business side. It looks like Chad Day also would be in that too. So we're going to lose him.
Yeah. So having some legacy planning in that regard would be really, really helpful.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if he's still on this list. He is, but he doesn't have a number. Jeff Grealish from Burst Group Logistics has come off. He has formally reflected that he needs to leave the board. So that is why he is not numbered here on this left-hand side. But if you, and then eventually the full board approve the nominee from today, that would keep us even on, well, adding one on your tally, but eventually to be able to fill that space.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it would give us a representative who lives and works in Carroll County.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. So let's jump just through the, let me zoom out a little bit so I can see where I'm driving. From an attendance standpoint, this is the full board. These are a little tough to read, but one thing we try to do is look at who is a habitual non-attender. Oh, is this? And what is B versus?
Well, this is as we were working for making sure that we had, this is for the full board meeting that we had, our special meeting to make sure we had our business ratio.
Okay.
So they attended, but we just threw in a little formula there where it would be easy to calculate.
Okay.
I don't know that I will always be doing that, but when we're doing a roll call on a Zoom meeting, it does make it a little easier to just very quickly get a feel for if we've got the right quorum or not. Mm-hmm. And I had done that for the other committees, but I'll be able to take that off now that I see we do not need that for the standing committees.
So B means that they attended, is that right?
Well, it's
B is their business.
Yeah, business. So if they're
actually,
in RSVP.
I guess I could look at the Zoom category for the last meeting. Okay, got it.
Yes.
Shara Dunlap.
Yes, Shara. She is with Owen Electric. You know, actually, she was on the Zoom. And I think the reason that she's not indicated there is because we were looking for the WIB members to be using the video so that we could see their faces. And she was not able to get her video to work. But I am still trying to find the statute that requires having to see your face in order to count for presence as a quorum. That's another thing that my team had suggested was a requirement, but I have not been able to locate that in the law. So I don't know if any of you have any, maybe the attorney in the room might have some thoughts about that, why that would be required.
Yeah, Tara, I'm not aware of any general, requirement for quorum purposes that a remote attendee, be present visually, and okay. Indeed, I mean, with the advancement of technology, it's really only a recent phenomenon that's even a possibility. Right. To the extent folks have been joining meetings remotely via teleconference, for decades. I would be surprised if there was any, provision existing now requiring visual, contact for that purpose. With that said, this is kind of a new question for me. I've not encountered it before, but I'd be extremely surprised if teleconference was not sufficient.
Yeah, I mean, in all of I don't know, I've participated in a lot of meetings over the years, and I had never heard that. And like I said, I have not been able to find that provision anywhere. So I really wasn't sure if that was I mean, perhaps it's actually, I need to look again. I mean, perhaps it's in our bylaws that's just been a local decision that was made. Dave, I don't know if that's something that sounds familiar to you.
Well, I know that we struggled with it for a long time, and this was before the electronic capability was able to allow this to happen so seamlessly. And it had always been discussed when we were having trouble getting quorum to get people to the meeting. We could get them on the phone, but we couldn't get them to attend. So ultimately, I think the local bylaws were changed to allow attendance electronically. But I think in the spirit of trying to cover all the bases, they wanted to make sure who they were talking to on the phone. So they wanted to see a face. That was part of the reasoning, I think, behind Barb's direction on that.
Okay.
But with that said, now it's almost commonplace, right? You have an IP address, you have a name that says, I know that I'm talking to John Baines, even though I can't see him, or I have a phone number that's attached to somebody. So I think I think it's a combination of local policy and folklore, frankly.
Okay. Well, if it's, I will dig into the bylaws then and try to better understand that. But from the standpoint of, like you say, Dave, sort of where we are now with the ability to really identify who's who involved in these various calls and things, even if someone's not able to participate in the video. I mean, I think it would be great if we could count just having somebody by phone, and then to be able to ask that if you can use video if possible, that's great. I mean, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say also, one of the concerns was that if we were able to allow somebody to attend electronically or through some other device rather than showing up at the meeting, our ability to have face-to-face meetings would diminish. People would just opt to attend electronically. And I think that's a question for the executive board to address, actually, because the WIB is all about networking and face-to-face and relationships.
Right.
And I don't know that Zoom promotes the best type of relationship building out there. Now,
sure,
we're in different times now, of course, but I think that, my opinion would be that we would allow electronic attendance only when you cannot be there, but we would encourage face-to-face meetings.
Sure. Just knowing that it's going to be quite a while before people's lives are completely back to normal. Maybe even if it was I don't know, some kind of reprieve for 2020 or something like that. I think it would be worth discussing. Certainly, Zoom allows us to conduct business. It doesn't necessarily allow us to build relationships and to really have other kinds of communication. So definitely understand that as well. So I will say, for the purposes of this meeting, I'll just make a note that Chris and Nick were voice. That's kind of what we've been doing the last, and we have a quorum anyway. We had a quorum at the other meetings anyway, and then and then we can go back and revise the minutes if we need to. So, okay.
All right.
Perfect.
So going back to the attendance side, Shira she was present for the July meeting, has missed all of the rest, and apparently was on the Zoom call. So not a great attendance track record. Others, Dr. Poe was there for his first meeting, but has not been to others. And then Mr. Stafford down there also a little bit hit or miss, but overall really good attendance.
I would say the common theme between Shara Dunlap and Dr. Stafford is that they are both from Owen County. And my guess is that I don't want to speak for them, and I haven't asked them. So but I do have a guess that the travel time probably cuts into their attendance. It's just a guess, maybe not. Which is why we have the Zoom capability. I did meet one-on-one with Shara, and that was in February, I believe, and really encouraged her to try to attend and talk to her about the Zoom and things of that sort. So it seemed like she's not brand new, but it seems like she's relatively new and still kind of feeling out the group. Dr. Poe, I spoke with him, and he said that it is his intention to have better attendance after he officially retires from his role as superintendent of Boone County. So right now he's on the board representing the Northern Kentucky Education Council, but because of his dual roles at the moment, it's making it quite difficult for him to attend, but that he plans to prioritize it once. I don't know the timing of his retirement, but I know it's relatively soon, maybe the end of the school year. So he indicated that he anticipated having strong attendance after that.
But he would still be an active member of the Education Council?
He's the new executive director.
I see. Okay.
So right now he's doing both, but in the future, after he fully retires as superintendent, that he will be full-time there.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so the executive committee will skip past that. NBO, we've had that discussion last time. Thanks to Dean coming on, we have a little bit less risk of a lack of quorum, but normally we're pretty good about getting together. So comfortable there. Program and youth.
We have struggled with quorum with program and youth, I will be honest.
Oh man, I really want to redo all these spreadsheets. So hard to read.
They are tough.
I try not to let the OCD part of me ever let people see that I have that, but when it comes to spreadsheets, it's really hard.
It didn't work out too well for you today.
No.
Is there anything in particular I can do to this to make it better?
I think any kind of dashboard thing, you really want to highlight what is where are you having issues, right?
Right.
Yes. And so you've got a lot of different sources of data in here, these B's and ones. So
like I said, those will
here, you can use a count ifs or other intelligent formulas to be able to blend your stuff in the background.
Maybe just a event and opportunity column to the far right, just that shows if there were 5 meetings that we're tracking, and I'll pick on the first one, Kevin, only attended 2, then we would show that he's at 40% attendance or something like that. That might be the easiest way to sort it.
I can do that.
Because it's hard to see even, and I love spreadsheets, and this is a tough one.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really have been at a loss of exactly what to do next on this document. So I think having a summary on the far right of what this really means for each individual in terms of attendance, I can absolutely do that. We do have David, who has been putting together some dashboards. They really weren't quite ready for you all today, but I would say by the time we meet next, they will be. So that'll be good.
Yeah. And I
The
guess
question in terms of excused versus absent,
you read my mind. I was going to say.
why do
the
we
very
care
same
about
thing.
that, or what does that impact?
You know, this is another example of, I believe in our bylaws, there's a statement that you can have so many excused absences. Basically, the difference is excused. That person let us know in advance that they were not coming, as opposed to they just did not attend. So if they did not attend and we didn't hear from them, then they would be counted as absent. Versus if they had let us know, then they would be excused.
Okay.
But
and
in
the
theory,
RSVP
there's
column, is
only
that
so many.
to manage the meetings to know who should be coming?
I'm sorry?
Who the RSVP column, who is that intended to serve?
That is intended to serve the staff. And I will say it varies depending on who is running the meeting, how much they use that. I always have been using it the last few months because I like to be able to try to calculate it. Sometimes I save it elsewhere, but it helps me to know if somebody had. I mentioned this to Dave yesterday. We were on the phone about something else. I don't know if this committee has any input on this, but there does seem to be sort of an interesting culture around all of these committees and the board as a whole in terms of how people RSVP. And I think this is from the staff as well as from the members. In terms of some people, I'm used to, I accepted the calendar invitation and therefore I am coming. That's the world of United Way. That's how we functioned. I might send you an extra, see you Tuesday, but if I accepted it, I'm there. And that does not necessarily, I'm not sure if that's not happening or if the staff are not necessarily using that. I'm trying to still learn exactly what's going on, but the staff are also like those that are like Tony, this is her, she's the lead on this committee. And so we'll hear like a week or several days prior to the meeting, oh, well, we've only heard from maybe like 5 people. And so then I'm having to ask her, well, have you called them or have you, reached out to those individuals? And so sometimes we end up having a great quorum anyway. Sometimes we don't. And I'm just not sure. It's very unclear to me what has been the practice in the past, what the expectation is of the members, what they would like to see with regard to how we do need to make sure we have quorums. So
Tara, let me explain the past in terms of calendar invites.
Okay.
Those were previously not sent out, or at least not well managed.
Okay.
So therefore, you could not rely on whether someone accepted or how they RSVP'd over the calendar invite.
Okay.
Those were not reliable. I will say that there's been a more concerted effort to make that correct.
Yes.
And that's why, we canceled the old ones and issued new ones.
Right.
I don't know why though, for example, like a new invite went out for the Zoom rather than just modifying the calendar invite, maybe because who has the permission for that?
That was, that was on me.
I would say if we manage calendars better, then we wouldn't need an offline tracking document for RSVPs. We could be able to access it that way.
Right.
Especially if you enable everyone to view the status of the RSVPs in your calendar function.
When you say everyone, do you mean all staff?
Just to be able to see who has attended. Some calendars prevents anyone but the person issuing that from seeing that. I'm not sure how that is in your calendar system.
Right. Yeah, we well, today, for example, I had said that the Zoom details were going to be in the calendar invite. And then I realized that that was incorrect. They were not there. So then I went in to change the calendar invite and I couldn't edit it. So definitely not ideal to send another one, but I was just trying to figure out how do I make sure that everybody sees this. So that's what I ended up doing.
Which is fine. What I'm trying to get to is
right.
if you could solve that,
right.
that'll solve the RSVP problem. If you can't solve that,
yeah.
then it's a question of
right.
how would you do that? And I don't have the right answer to that question.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Other than another email saying reminder of the meeting, with the packet, please confirm
right.
your attendance.
Right.
I would say this, though. I think that having your staff track a board member's attendance is really not value-added work, in my opinion. Okay. I mean, it's nice to know that you're going to have a quorum, but I think what you said when you started this discussion is that when you were with United Way, if you accepted a meeting notice, you were planning on attending, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a great rule to enforce. And then I think if we could enforce that fact, then having your staff make calls or look at calendar invites 3 or 4 times, and then making, and then making a mistake on an Outlook calendar that sets everybody on edge, I think it's all non-value added. So I think, I guess what I'm recommending, Tara, is that now that you're the new sheriff in town, you can go to each committee and say, this is how I would like to have this managed, right? And we can kind of get past all the old folklore and, different ways that people managed it,
Right.
It's a good opportunity to put fresh eyes on it.
That's helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that sounds great to me. We've definitely been working with our IT team to try to make that possible for sure. And I think that would help the members a lot to not be getting constant confusing, correspondence like from different people and different things. I think personally, I find it confusing. I'm sure you guys have to find it confusing. So,
and I also think that whether or not you're excused or not excused, if you're not attending, you're just not attending,
right.
I think that's really the important thing. We need to have board members that are engaged with what the WIB is trying to accomplish. And, that can be face-to-face or by Zoom. Either way, they're at least being present and having their opinions made. I would like to just make it as simple as possible and just say you either showed up or you didn't.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Certainly, though, if you are tracking RSVPs and 2 days ahead, you don't have quorum.
Sure.
I think you want to warn everyone that we won't have quorum and the meeting will be canceled, unless whatever. So if you're not, that way people who are planning to come but will not need to can go and recapture that time for themselves.
Certainly. Yeah.
So, Tara,
okay.
This looks pretty good though. You've had quorum other than October. Oh, I'm sorry, no, February.
And February.
Yeah. Are you talking about the program youth committee?
Yeah. The other thing that's been that we will not be doing in the future is if we don't have quorum, we're still going to note who came, because otherwise,
how close were you?
How do we know who wasn't there?
Right.
Yeah, who is the culprits?
Yeah. So, and life happens, and we absolutely know that. So, there's going to be people that just have things come up, but how do we try to help at least minimize that as much as possible?
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So quorum is 7. Yeah, this was the historically bad committee. It's gotten a lot better though. So
yeah.
And with Andy now moving into the role of chair, I think he'll find a way to make that momentum continue. Okay. So let's move on then to go back to the agenda. So from this, I would say the calls to action here are going to be, let's just, new sheriff in town mantra. Let's figure out how we want to maintain this, track it, manage it, and go forward from there. And with a reporting structure that allows us to better account for members who are concerned or potential issues we have in that.
Yep. So next time you meet, you will have a dashboard to review. So that'll be good.
Cool. That'll be great.
All right. So we have a membership nomination form. This should be filled out by Brent as the head of the chamber,
okay.
Correct? Since it's a business representative.
Yes. Sorry about that. Does that?
That's okay.
Okay. Do we need to go back and do that prior to? So she's in Carroll County. So I don't know that. I mean, I guess that's fine. They technically kind of embrace the entire region. But I can tell you a little bit about her if that would be helpful.
Yeah, so I mean, this is just a review of who this is. It's not an approval. That'll be brought forward in the full meeting.
Correct. Yeah, she, as you can see, is involved in SHRM and Education for Excellence, Carroll County. She and her organization, the company that she works for, North American Stainless, has been very involved in some of the 42 corridor work. And now I can't think of the name of that organization, but that they've been very involved in really just very similar work that aligns with the WIB and what we've been trying to do in terms of working with local youth. How do they help get youth into some of the manufacturing companies that are there in Carroll and Gallatin County, sponsoring a lot of events. And so she's worked a lot with their local community and technical college, which is Jefferson Community and Technical College. So she's an HR person, as you can read there, but has been pretty involved in her community. And she was referred to us by the local career center team down in Carrollton.
Oh, good. Okay. I guess I was going to ask, does she have the ability to support policy and decision-making inside North American Stainless?
That's a good question. She seems to definitely have the ear of their local organization in terms of supporting local initiatives. I'm not sure that she has the ability to change, whole business practices, but she definitely seems to have their ear in terms of like community engagement outreach.
Okay, great. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And the more that we can get these outlying counties involved, the more diverse our network becomes.
Absolutely.
Which is good.
Okay.
Great.
Very good. Then that takes us through our agenda today. Anything else, Tara, that you'd like our feedback on?
John, do you all need, and I don't have action noted on the review of the nomination, but do you all need to take a vote to formally move this nomination to the full WIB?
I don't recall how we've done this in the past. We can certainly do that.
I feel like you did that last time we met with Danita. More voting just to move it ahead.
Yeah.
As a recommendation.
That's fine. Why don't we do that? Do I need to make a motion to call for that, or can I simply call for that vote?
I think you would be asking for a motion.
All right. So I move to, can I get a motion to vote on the nomination of Lisa Morris?
Move that we do so.
Dean, approve the motion. A second?
Second.
Dave with a second. So all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. All right, motion
Okay.
passes, and I will bring this to the full board at our next meeting. And let's just make sure that we figure out who the sponsor is of that. I'm assuming Brent, but
Okay.
just so that
Yeah,
that's complete when we present it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. That's all I have for
Perfect.
you all today.
Can I ask one quick question though? If I just so that we can be thinking about this, is there a way that we can start to look at our diversity and inclusion numbers as a board? Male,
Yeah.
female, black, white,
Yes.
yellow, red, blue. I
Yes.
think it's important that we consider our diversity. I'm still always worried about the diversity in Northern Kentucky. So I'm not saying it's a thing that we have to address immediately, but I think we should be talking about our inclusion and diversity targets.
Dave, I'd be definitely interested in doing that. So I have a question about that actually. Do you think that it would be best I could survey the members just personally? I could send something and ask how they, explain that this is an interest of the MBO committee to better understand the diversity of the group. And I could have those come back to me, for internal use only by MBO, or I don't know exactly how that would work, but basically I could ask people to self-identify of sort of how they would like to be classified. Is that typically how you would do that? Any suggestions from HR folks or attorneys? Highly appreciated on this one.
Yeah.
Especially the attorney.
Yeah. I don't want to offend anybody, and I want to make sure that I certainly don't want to be in the job of classifying somebody. I feel like I would want them to classify themselves into whatever category.
Yeah, that's the best practice, Tara, for sure. And kind of a natural opportunity to do that is the onboarding process, where you can have a very brief questionnaire, that it is optional. It is always the best practice as well, but where you state, just for our own tracking purposes and reaching our own goals of diversity and inclusion, if you would please, indicate the appropriate, demographic criteria, that would be helpful. That's the best way for handling new folks coming on board. As far as existing members, I think you could certainly circulate that same, document to the full membership of the board at some point. And I think that's something, if you do it that way, most everyone would be on board with.
Okay.
Is there any constraint in our ability to track this? Are we allowed to track this?
Yes.
Really...
Yes, that's a legitimate, operation which any organization can undertake, for purposes of diversity and inclusion. Yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, because then we could put that in the same kind of a dashboard, just to be able to visually sort of understand where we are with that. Thank you so much. I know we've mentioned that before, but I feel like that's a operational way that I can go about doing that. And to that end, I did just remember that Jason on our team had mentioned another business leader that that he thought might be a good candidate for the WIB, and I think this person would be good. One of the things that we had talked about at our last meeting, in terms of, we looked a lot last time at industry mix, and we talked about the fact that we don't really have a too broad of a look at in the healthcare area. I mean, we definitely have St. Elizabeth, But we had talked about maybe trying to find someone on the, maybe it's assisted living side or home health care or some other health area. I mean, maybe it's even, we have several companies in Covington now, and I'm aware of them because of this COVID-19 crisis, but, that do testing and things of that sort in the medical area. But do you all feel, in terms of, attracting new leadership to join the WIB, even if we have people that are really dynamic, just on their own, I kind of feel like we should also be focused on geography, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also the industry that they would be bringing into the mix in terms of the targeted industries that we're looking at as a region. So does that sound right to you all? When we have other people interested, how would you like to hear from me about that? I don't know if that's a helpful question, the way I worded it, but sometimes I think we hear from people that are maybe interested, but they don't necessarily fit one of our key focus areas. And I certainly would like to make sure that we have a process, and I'm sure I eventually will feel like we have a little bit more of a process. It's only been the second time I've ever met with you guys, but just kind of curious. I know there's a WIB, the Southwest Ohio WIB, they actually have a nomination period, and where nominations are open on a staggered basis annually. And so, say it's April and May is like nomination time. And then people serve out more, rather than having kind of constant flow of people, they have a time of year where they take nominations, which is just an interesting way to handle it, perhaps eventually.
So if the diversity and inclusion is really part of what we're working to improve, and I agree that it should be, we probably should have a strategy.
Yeah.
As a committee, how are we going? What is our strategy to improve it, and then what is our target, and so it gives us a way to go about it. And the reason I say that is because that's going to start driving how we want to recruit, so that we start sourcing through areas where we maybe wouldn't normally touch. And we may have to look at the same time as that sometimes we might have someone there that's representing a diverse group or population, and maybe they don't necessarily need it, but their constituencies do. And we can clarify some of our goals for some of those areas. So as opposed to just pulling out the shotgun and what we drag home with us, right?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And that's a really good way to say it. And I'm not articulating it very well at all today. It's been a really long week, and it's Tuesday. But at United Way, we had a very public and very specific strategy around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I feel like generally everybody on the entire team and the board knew what that was, right? Or knew that it was at least being created. And so, maybe that's a part of our strategic planning process, for example, something like that, where, you do definitely have to start with the, where are we now, right? That level set of having everybody kind of understand, and I think that goes for not only the board makeup, and the staff makeup, but also our constituencies, right? Also, who are we serving, too? But maybe if we could gather that kind of information prior to the start of the strategic planning process, which, by the way, I'm not sure when that's going to start now, possibly we could then be much more strategic if we had all that information at hand.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
Thanks, Dean. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a great idea, Dean. I think if we have that strategic direction or mission or goal or whatever, then we can decide what kind of process we need to utilize to fill that, right? Whether it's open nomination point or it's one-on-one as we've been doing. But I think strategically we have to decide how we're going to recruit and who we're going to recruit. I think that's the big first step.
Yeah.
And it begins with what is the current state. Once we
Yeah.
establish the current state, then we build from there. And there may be certain board positions that we feel like it's necessary to target, for lack of a better word. It's not my favorite one, but identify certain board positions that it's important for us to use those toward the goal. It could open the opportunity too for us using the language for the committees that we talked about earlier today, to bring people in and use that as a bridge to the next board, to develop board members by starting them on a committee and letting it work with the committee. So, because sometimes you have to develop the talent, and that could be a way for us to do that.
Yeah, Brighton Center does that when they bring in new board members. They have a myriad of different operations, but they require everybody to go through the program committee to kind of get their feet wet and get their sea legs, right?
Yeah.
And then they can move into a more complex or a committee that maybe fits their skill set a little bit better, and vice versa. So,
Cool.
and I guess I want to go back to the conversation that we had about the ad hoc committees. We did structure the board a long time ago to get to where we're at now. It wasn't that, we were just lucky that we got all these great board members. It was pretty strategic in viewpoint, but it wasn't a process, right? And it wasn't as formal as what I think we're talking about today. So I do think we need, as Dean said, to understand where we're at, develop the process, get the mission statement in place, and then start to go forward.
Okay. That's really helpful. Really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, very good. So I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you for your participation today.
Second.
Very positive dialogue.
All right.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks.
Take care. Stay safe
you.
all.
All right. Same to you
See
all.
ya.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Take care.
Bye.
Take
Okay.
care.
See you later.
Bye-bye.